Despite ZenlessZoneZero appearing straightforward at times, there are a few mechanics or gameplay features that can be confusing. One of those being how to build a team, and another being why you should take certain characters together. In today's video, I'll be breaking down the best and budget options for team building in ZenlessZoneZero, while also outlining what a team needs or should have. Let's get into it. If you're already familiar with what a team needs, feel free to skip to the next section, but here's what every team consists of or is aiming to have. The first part of a team is the damage dealer. This goes without saying, but being able to complete content in ZenlessZoneZero is reliant on whether you do enough damage in the allowed time. So with that, the traditional and accepted damage dealers we'll go over today are Ellen, Grace, Piper, Soldier 11, Nekomata, Corina, Anton, and Billy. Zhu Yuan and her kit are known, however, I do want to make off from making too many calls about her in case some last second changes come in, though there are some pretty safe bets to make when it comes to her strong teams. The second part of a team is the support/defense, although there is only one defense character currently. The supports in ZenlessZoneZero are typically buffers, not healers as of 1.0, though we do have something close to a tank/more traditional support with Ben. However, supports in ZenlessZoneZero do not fall in the healing/mitigation category as much, and instead they focus more on buffing a team or amping up your damage. The support and defense agents that fall under this category are Lucy, Nicole, Corina, Sokaku, and Ben, the one defense character. Since it has been mentioned a lot as well, there is a Bang Boo that heals, but this isn't really relevant for the grand scheme of things team composition wise. But moving along, the third and final part of a team is more flexible. This role can change based on the team you're trying to build and who you own. This role pretty much covers all the remaining possible characters in the game. Sometimes the third character in the team will be a second support, however there are times where the third slot will end up being a stunner to give your team the perfect opportunity to blow up enemies with well-timed buffs and a huge ultimate or burst rotation. So now that you have an idea of what the teams look like, who pairs well with who? Well, let me begin by stating that these are my personal recommendations based on fighting in Shiyu defense and talking to other ZenlessZoneZero theory crafters, so keep that in mind and ultimately you are free to use whoever you want. Before we get into the teams though, I do want to make mention that a common trend you'll see in the free-to-play team department is that their playstyle or game plans almost feel incomplete. Sometimes a character almost feels forced to use a 5-star or more premium character, and if you don't, the playstyle won't make much sense or feels much worse. With that, let's start with Ellen. Our favorite maid is super straightforward, and this is a good thing. She's powerful and does the most damage in the game. Her premium and best team we'll begin talking about is the triple ice composition. This team is absolutely insane, featuring 2 ice agents to complement her perfectly, and the goal here is to stun the boss, buff up Ellen, and one-shot everything in sight. Lycone is no joke when you take a look at his defense shred, how quickly he can stun the boss, and the fact that he increases the standard stun damage multiplier from 150 to 185. But Sokaku is also crazy given that you can transfer the 1000 flat attack to allies if you swap from her after casting Fly the Flag. This, in combination with the ice damage bonus that you gain from consuming vortex charges, alongside a potential 10% ice res, makes her absolutely crazy value with Ellen. The second team I want to bring up is the I don't have multiple ice units free-to-play composition with Ellen, Ambi, and Lucy. This team is missing Lycone, and therefore you are looking for a replacement to stun or provide value to Ellen in other ways. Unfortunately, there are only 2 other stunners in the game, but the good news is that Ambi is free and stuns really well herself if you master her. Now you might be asking who can replace Sokaku, and the answer is, well, really no one, since she's given for free, and the attack increase plus ice damage plus defense shred if you get multiple copies of her is wild. But if for some reason you're allergic to flags or hate the color blue, Lucy also fits great with this team given the free attack and stat increases that she provides. Now on to Grace. Grace has a much different playstyle to Ellen, and her team compositions reflect that. The premium team for Grace as the main damage dealer is her paired with Piper or Kaleda, and then ending things off with Rina. The goal of this team is to apply attribute anomalies as quick as possible so that you can take advantage of Disorder. Disorder is a special damage effect that happens when 2 different anomalies are present on an enemy at the same time. This is absolutely insane value from a damage and stunning point of view, so you just want to debuff the enemies and fill up this bar fast. Piper herself is an absolute monster when it comes to this, but she has a major flaw, which is that she needs the enemy to stop moving so that she can reliably hit them with her special attack. This skill builds up physical anomaly extremely fast and can be paired with Grace's insane electro anomaly buildup speed. However, the best part about this team is that Piper's main flaw in having to hit a moving target with this skill is also covered by Grace shocking and making enemies stop moving through her anomaly attribute. This is a perfect match, and I highly encourage you all to try out this team if you can, but But Kaleda also does well too, considering she can stun, increase the damage of Grace's abilities, and Anomaly. However, she does take longer to apply her Anomaly herself, although you are able to stun and force the enemy to take more damage, since she does have the Stunner or Dazer role too. Now, you probably also almost forgot that there was a third slot on this team because of how lethal the first two combinations are, but Rina, like Sokaku and other supports, definitely make the insane synergy between these two characters even more obvious. The penetration ratio increase via her core skill is great value for buffing when it comes to this team, and her ability to increase shock duration casted on her team also makes taking her alongside Grace absolutely mandatory. For your free-to-play option though, consider taking Grace, Piper, and Lucy. This team's goal is pretty much still the same as the last, but Piper and or Kaleda can be replaced by Ambi. Just remember that you're trading a great Anomaly applier or stunner in exchange for an Electro stunner specifically. Lucy does perform well too, given her attack increase and the additional boars staying on field to deal damage. However, these teams, as I mentioned, have the same exact goal: buff up and start applying anomalies, or get to stunning. Now, we just mentioned her, so it only feels fair to talk about her now. Piper, similar to Corrin, who we'll get to later, has a major weakness in needing to be within melee range. The solution to this is Piper's two best teams. Piper, Kaleda, Lucy, and Piper, Grace, Rina both perform extremely well together for several reasons. We already talked about how Grace can shock and immobilize the enemy with her Anomaly, which makes Piper super easy to play, but what if we took things a little bit further and made the enemy stand still with stun? That's the premise of taking Piper, Kaleda, and Lucy together with stuns, burns, and disorder. Keep in mind that Kaleda can become even more appealing to play herself if you take Ben as your third slot agent. However, whether this is more worth it than just taking Lucy for the attack increase, it's tough to say. It's time for us to talk free-to-play now though. Removing Grace from the equation with Piper and just running her, Ambi, and Lucy definitely feels much worse than her premium main DPS team, but there honestly aren't that many characters that pair well with Piper as a main DPS and also aren't 5-star at the same time. Kaleda is definitely the ideal pairing here to replace Ambi if possible. However, Piper, Ambi, Lucy will still work well since Anomaly plus an attack increase plus a stunner will allow Piper to spin on her enemies for a long period of time and deal insane damage with it. Soldier 11 has a lot of good teams and options to pick from. However, her best and premium team is definitely Soldier 11, Kaleda, and Lucy. This team aims to stun the boss, apply burn, and unload Lucy's attack increase before swapping to Soldier and blowing up the enemy. This feels very similar to how you would play Ellen with a more typical carry plus stun plus buffer playstyle, unlike Grace. Her additional ability being that she gains damage when hitting a stunned enemy and wanting to pair herself with a fire character means that this team fits perfectly with each other. For your free-to-play team, Soldier 11, Ben, and Lucy is also very good. Ben being free and having two parts that synergize well with Soldier's additional ability means that he is fantastic already as a free-to-play and given to us option. Keep in mind as well that he can provide a 16% crit rate shield if you can maintain it throughout the fight, but it's hard to say right now if this shield will outvalue Kaleda's stun and her ability to maintain Inferno Metal's passive by applying Anomaly much easier than Ben can. Regardless of this min-maxing, however, Ben is still a solid choice. I would go on and on about how good Lucy is, but you probably already know what she does and where her value lies. Though for this team specifically, she does contribute towards maintaining the crit rate that you gain from the Inferno Metal passive that I just mentioned. This is probably one of the most straightforward set of teams with the most straightforward game plan, and it should be no surprise that a lot of people have gravitated towards this team composition, especially if they haven't decided to pick up Ellen. Nekomata is an interesting case. She herself does not have a lot of great synergies in the 5-star category, and in fact the best team I found, regardless if free-to-play or not, is Nekomata, Ambi, and Nicole. There are plenty of reasons for this, but the honest truth is that no one currently synergizes super well with Nekomata, since the physical attribute in general is lacking. If we take a look at Nekomata's additional ability, it reads that after another character inflicts assault, increases the damage of Nekomata's next EX special attack by 35%, stacking up to 2 times. Now this sounds solid, however your options for applying assault are either attack characters who want to spend more time on field, like Billy and Corrin, or Piper, who spends a lot of time doing this. If we ignore needing to fulfill Nekomata's additional ability, a combination like Kaleda and Lucy for attack increase and stun is also solid, though it does feel kinda weird to recommend since we're completely ignoring a part of her kit. To be clear, recommending pretty much any team outside of the Ambi Nicole team feels bad since they aren't true fits to her playstyle. For this team though, Onbi being a stunner is nice since all damage dealers want enemies to stand still and to be able to unload increased stun damage on them, and Nicole gathering enemies together will help Nekomia's EX special pop off on a concentrated group. Ultimately though, my personal recommendation would be to build this team for now and wait until someone else gets released that fits better for a higher investment in that team. Corrin shares some of the same problems as Piper and Nekomia in terms of team building, but on the bright side, she does have the ability to match factions a bit with Lycone. For the premium Corrin main DPS team, look no further than Corrin, Lycone, and your choice of Sokaku or Lucy. This feels like a robbery or a stand-in team since you're effectively stealing Ellen's best in slot team, and Corrin doesn't really have a great way to synergize with their element since physical, again, is definitely one of the more painful attributes to synergize with. And as I mentioned during the Nekomata team composition, having access to only assault characters or Piper's on-field spinning demands makes Corrin want to look elsewhere to fulfill her additional ability. Corrin does have an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage in her kit and multipliers, however you do need a team that stuns or locks down enemies so she can make use of said abilities. Fortunately for her, Lycone and Sokaku buff and provide utility to Corrin so that she can do this with a stun multiplier increase and also an attack increase. Now we've pointed to all these different things that could make Corrin good, but you could also argue that Ellen or pretty much any other damage dealer that has these two together would feel the same given this combo. For those of you trying to play Corrin as a main DPS alongside a full free-to-play team, try her alongside Onbi and Piper, but this will likely feel like the worst team amongst all possible options since you're trying to force fulfill her additional ability with the faction that has 2 5-stars and an element that has all attack-based agents outside of a greedy Piper. I did make a disclaimer earlier for why you might want to hold off on investing into a Nekomata team, but the real challenge in ZenlessZoneZero would be investing in a free-to-play Corrin team without her actually having a good fit. Now let's talk about Anton. Now if you've made it this far, you're probably wondering why I didn't include Grace, Anton, Rina as the recommended Grace team, but it's just because Anton definitely spends more time on field when paired with her, therefore they do pair well together, you just wouldn't call it a main DPS Grace team. To add on to this, Antoine definitely wants to be on field as much as possible, so he can take advantage of his additional ability, which is where a lot of his damage actually comes from. With this in mind, Antoine will definitely want to be on field at all times after Grace and Rina have applied enough shock anomaly, but I think I've also talked about Grace and Rina's synergy quite a bit, especially earlier on, but as a refresher, adding Pen to both Grace and Antoine in this team is huge value for damage, especially as enemies gain more and more defense. The real big value that I'd like to highlight here, however, is allowing Anton more time to activate his additional ability. This team composition is very solid if you just want to see big shock numbers, though it does feel a bit weird at times since Grace is all about anomaly proficiency and mastery, whereas Antoine wants to focus more heavily on crit and is built more like a traditional DPS. If you don't have Grace and are trying to play Antoine with a free-to-play team though, you're kind of out of luck, but Antoine Ambi plus your choice of any damage increaser / support will work as the free-to-play team. Antoine Ambi are able to cover his additional ability requirement, but actually applying shock in this team will be much harder than you think. Your choice of support between Nicole, Sokaku, and Lucy will all perform in different ways and are honestly very straightforward in what they provide to this team. However, the attack increase and the fact that we have a stunner brings us back to the typical carry paired with stunner and buffer rotation and lets you lean into the traditional carry plus stun plus buff loop. And now finally we have Billy. Billy feels similar to a lot of the characters that we've just mentioned, including Corrin and Nekomata, in terms of not having the perfect team quite yet, and who would have guessed it, he's also a physical character. As a result of this, Billy makes use of the generic Cutting Hairs team with Ambi and Nicole as both his best free-to-play and premium team. Now, as I just mentioned, Billy suffers a lot from not really having an identity outside of dealing physical damage, but there are other characters, especially DPS, who do share a similar fate. However, this does feel a little bit worse for Billy, since we do already have so many physical damage dealers, and with that, he shares a spot alongside Corrin as a DPS that does need more testing or more characters to come out that synergize uniquely with him. I would like to say that I am a big fan of his design and personality, to be honest, which does make this review and team suggestion kinda sting for me to give. But he's also a ranged character, so maybe that can be an angle that he could be appreciated in. It's too early to tell. Now, the last character on this list is Zhu Yuan, and we kind of already know what her ideal team will look like. Nicole, up until this point, has pretty much only been used to fulfill a faction bonus and for her grouping potential on her vacuum, but with Zhu Yuan, we'll actually have a character who can make use of her ether damage increase. I don't really want to assume more than this because honestly, I'm not sure what else might or could change between now and Zhu Yuan's release, but this is a good place to start considering she's a carry DPS. Moving on from just Nicole, Anbi as her second pairing is also great. Zhu Yuan can make use of Anbi's stun roll and her electric attribute, and all of this while being able to apply stun quickly and also being free really makes both Anbi and Nicole, who again is also free, a great and appealing team choice for Zhu Yuan when she comes out. Now to break down my final thoughts on these teams, I do think that there is a pretty solid game plan when it comes to team building and priority. Building a team around the 5-star that you rolled from the beginner banner is usually the best, though rest in peace if you didn't roll or ended up with a character you don't like. For the most part though, having at least one 5-star means that you can build a team that is fairly strong. However, if you unluckily receive a 5-star that doesn't synergize with what you want to play, keep in mind that both Ellen and Zhu Yuan have extremely high performing teams that you can actually pity and you can force to come onto your account. All of that is assuming you win your 50-50 though, and I'm praying for you. In terms of strength though, I do have some highlights that I also want to mention. The Mono Ice Ellen team, of course, is going to be the strongest, at least for what's currently available as of 1.0, but Soldier 11 and Grace's team compositions also feel very fun, high damage, and fulfilling to play as we continue to gain the ability to gear them and see more stats on them. Teams that have a traditional stunner plus buffer layout also feel much better than those who don't, and anytime you can fulfill the requirements needed to activate a character's additional ability, while also maintaining the stunner buffer layout I just mentioned, leaves you with a very fun, strong, and enjoyable team, at least at the current stage of ZenlessZoneZero. If you really want to understand what that feels like, compare building a team that involves someone like Nekomata or any of the physical damage dealers, and then put that experience up against the experience you have when you try to build Ellen, Soldier 11, characters like that. That's going to be it for this team building video though, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. I will see you all next time. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night. Whoa, you made it to the end of another ZenlessZoneZero video. I am very tired and exhausted, but that's okay because I really like ZenlessZoneZero. You should click on the next video that ZenlessZoneZero is, you should click on the next video that YouTube is probably recommending. I don't know. Anyways, I'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye. See ya.